started. Are there any other questions? There, yes, Dan, come on down. So this part of the session is really an overview of ideas. Dan, come on down here. To tell you basically what the plan is or isn't, to give you some download information if you want some more details about the plan or a read out of it. Then we'll break for 15 minutes or so, maybe not quite that many, and then we will go into the public session. Jerry Scharfenberger is going to handle that. I believe you all signed up and coming in, and so we will hear all of your comments tonight, and we will stay as long as it takes to hear all of your comments. Any questions before we go? If not, this is Dan. Kennedy, please do me a favor and give them your background. Give us your background and get started. So, thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight.
Thank you very much. My name is Dan Kennedy. I'm by trade, by licensed professional planner. My background in county government is where I started my career. I was attracted to come up into this office by the Lieutenant Governor because she had some ideas about how to do statewide planning differently and more effective. So I decided to come up from Burlington County after a 7-year tenure there, also experienced representing freeholders on various different boards, and also my local government, and thought very carefully about what could state planning be effective for, what should not be used for. I think I'm happy to have the opportunity to be in front of you today, talk about how we think the plan can be part of a prosperous future for the state of New Jersey. There's a long history we have here in land use planning, state planning, that goes back into the 20s. We have documents in our office, and also if you were to say Google state planning, it goes really deep back into the 20s. A lot of the post-World War II efforts for the design and construction of the turnpike. It goes back into those movements even that predate the environmental movement in the 60s and 70s that you've learned probably about in some books about the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. Planning in New Jersey goes back before all of them. There's a difference between planning and zoning and regulation. Planning is, by design, intended to be more vision-based, mission-based, and it doesn't necessarily have to get into the weeds. You get into the weeds with regulations, you get into the weeds with land use zoning in your local level, you get into the weeds when you make investment decisions down the line after the plan is in place. But the plans, best written in our opinion, are ones that the general public can understand. Not a 400, 500-page treatise that you have to have a master's degree in city planning to understand. So when we came on board here under this administration, we were charged with going through a process that we entitled the State Strategic Plan Process. And we went through a process that started last spring. We went through the state, dealt with a wide range of stakeholders from community development interests, environmental interests, the building community, the job producers in this state, local governments all throughout the state, including county government and local municipal government. And we basically asked them, what are we doing wrong? What could we do right that can really help you plan and zone your municipalities, deal with the fiscal constraints that you're under right now, and see that future for your town that maybe kind of lines up with this broader statewide vision. What we heard back from those local governments and from the private sector and from the advocates is that the state planning from 2000s, basically the 2000s, weren't a rich decade for state planning. There was a lot of process involved. There was a lot of meetings involved. There was a lot of dialogue involved. And in the end, it wasn't delivering for folks. So what we did is we basically put together this short document that gives a high-level vision and mission for the state of New Jersey moving forward, built back some objectives and strategies, and then, am I rested already? This is full service. Thank you very much. In the plan, we talk about some of the other conditions that drove the need for change. We talk about the market shifts that we face in this New Jersey, the engine for sprawl that we faced in the 90s and the 2000s has been slowed. The changing demographics and market asks of the next generation of home buyers, the next generation of people who want to work in our state. A lot of those trends that we saw in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s are shifting. So it's about choice. Do we have places in this state that will attract residents and job producers that want to work for those jobs, that are educated for those jobs, to start be the new residents of New Jersey or to continue to be residents of New Jersey? My wife and I are fourth generation New Jersey residents. We're raising fifth generation residents of this state. So I've got personally skin in the game. We may all have the same sort of feelings for the state. We know what our weaknesses may be, but we're all here, I think, because we care. We may have different views of the world, but we care about New Jersey. So I wanted to say thank you for coming on out. There's a difference between this plan, the state plan, and what happens at your local level. The State Planning Act of 1985 was put together when Back to the Future was the most popular movie in the country, 1985. So it's at a time when technology had really advanced, the way we communicate with each other was much different, the way we mapped land was much different, and the framework that was provided at the time in that legislation was probably no more than the legislature would provide moving forward. So what we did is we tried to fit the requirements of the State Planning Act as the legislature and the governor at the time, Governor King, approved back then, and tried to revision and retool what was supposed to be done on the state plan to modernize it, to streamline it, and to make it meet the values that and meet the challenges that we face today in this state. So every town, no matter where you live in this state, has a master plan and zoning regulations that govern the land use and intensity of that use within your municipality. The state plan, the act says, put a plan together, but the plan implementation is voluntary. So we spent the last 25 years with a plan that's been voluntary and trying to, in some ways, create incentives, carrots and sticks, to have municipalities amend their plans and zoning regulations to be consistent with the state plan. Needless to say that that process has not been fruitful. Therefore, like any other government exercise under this administration that's not working, we've chosen to revision and retool. But in the end, what's in this plan was specifically scoped for assisting the state identify where it can most effectively make its investments and where it most effectively can offer flexibility when local government decisions are made and they face the state regulations that the state of New Jersey is required to, under state or federal law, to manage. Resources that can't be managed town by town, like water, like air, like things like that don't respect a 1 mile square town boundary. Those are the things that the state is authorized and required to regulate. So we have local zoning meeting state regulation. You also have lots of kind of agencies in the middle. You've got counties, you've got regional entities like the Pinelands Commission. You've got regulation of the state like CAFRA that act as kind of like a regional head. Yeah. So what the regulated community, and even the regulating community wants, and we think they deserve, is to have a process that makes some sort of sense and have, at the very least, have state government be organized around itself. So the answers that the local government gets from state government is the same whether you're talking to DEP, whether you're talking to DOT, or whether you're talking to the Department of Community Affairs. So what this is about is streamlining, having effective, smarter government, and making sure that you're getting a predictable set of answers when you raise those questions up to state government. So we recognize the role that state government plays in the everyday needs of municipalities when they pursue economic development or land preservation. This plan is not just about economic development, although I'll have to say economic development is a core tenet of the plan here. The plan of 1985, you may have been in rooms like this before. Has anyone ever been to a state plan type meeting before? Let me see. All right, how about plan endorsement in your local government? Okay, great, so we're amongst friends here. And everyone else, don't feel out of place. You're amongst friends here. So typically what you hear is a lot of conversation about the map, or a lot of conversation about the plan endorsement process. Plan endorsement was, and both of these systems are ones that we're actively pursuing stepping back from, to have less requirements of local government to get coordination from state government. So the state plan policy map that's in place today, that the plan argues should stay in place for the transition, will be phased out in the next year and a half, is what you would look at as a statewide land use map that identifies places in the state that suitable for growth, suitable for suburban development, suitable for preservation. And what has happened over the time, even though the goal was to keep that a non-regulatory function, over time, the regulatory framework has crept into that mapping framework, so that the non-regulatory map, especially in places like our coastal areas, has created another layer between state regulations and local government regulations. Plan endorsement is a process known by local governments as one that the State Planning Commission put on the table to assist local governments understand what the state wanted from them under the state plan, and they had to do certain things. And the promise was, if you do these things, you will get some sort of prize, whether that prize is regulatory flexibility, whether that prize is some sort of incentive or recognition. A planner described plan endorsement to us, and I think it sums it up the best, as a cruel hoax. Because in the end, towns went through a lot of time and expense, spent a lot of money, spent a lot of resources locally, and not all of those resources were wasted, mind you. But in the end, the promises, the carrots, never materialized. So we have a lot of local governments, over 100, that came through our door seeking and pursuing to work with state government. At the end, only 17 have gone through this process. And though there's a couple more, maybe 10 that are interested in pursuing it further to get this certification, most all other of those municipalities have backed away because the state of New Jersey didn't live up to that promise. So those are two of the features of state planning you may be familiar with that the plan argues translating into a new system or just not doing those things anymore. In 2001, the last state plan was adopted. This is not a new thing. There's been 2 plans adopted. This would be the 3rd state plan. The process to revise and re-adopt the 2001 plan started in earnest in 2004. The legislature says through the act that you're supposed to revise and re-adopt every 3 years. I am no mathematician, but it's much later than 3 years afterwards. So when this administration took over, they inherited a lot of, a significant amount of disagreement documented by local government when this lieutenant governor was a sheriff in Monmouth County and our governor was a prosecutor. So this is not about us trying to upset the apple cart of the system that's working. What this is about is this administration stepping up to the plate and trying to fix something that wasn't working. This observation was made before this administration came on board, and some of the supporting documents of our plan document that. So this high level of disagreement, the transition reports, the Red Tape Commission findings and recommendations led us to this place where the State Planning Commission in our office, which is now called the Office for Planning Advocacy, is now housed under the Lieutenant Governor, under her direction, and the State Planning Commission will working very closely with to make sure that the state plan of the future meets the needs of our residents and our businesses. Governor Christie signed an Executive Order 78, copies of which are available at the desk. Basically put together a steering committee of state agencies to implement the plan once it's adopted. So what you have here, which you've never had before, is state agencies ready to implement once the plan is in place. The executive order did not, we repeat, did not approve the plan. It said once the plan is in place, after the process takes place, which includes all these public hearings we're doing around the state, then the state of New Jersey will then deliver. Many of the disagreements that were in place for local government were based in the fact that the state through cross-acceptance, which is the process known as cross-acceptance, that would revise and re-adopt the plan, working with local government. A lot of great ideas came up from local government. And because of the desires of the day, which were much heavier in terms of environmental protection, and it was different times too, when sprawl was really, the engine for sprawl was really pushing a lot of land uses that may not have been desirable for the state moving forward. So we get into the situation where we need to be more strategic about the time we ask our local governments to spend, the money that the state spends and invests. And any complex organization, whether you're talking private or public sector, needs a successful strategy to make sure that their complex organization is working well. And there's no chance that the state of New Jersey, because maybe we don't agree on everything in this room, but we all have to agree the state of New Jersey is a complex organization with lots of moving parts. Without a common mission, likelihood for success for any plan, no matter what that plan does, is extremely unlikely. So the executive order puts in place the mechanism that we think can actually deliver for local governments and our residents. The resource constraints that we have in the state require this kind of attention. Whether resource constraints are environmental or fiscal, this complex organization known as the state of New Jersey is rethinking its organizational structure to make fundamental changes to make sure that in the future we are a better partner in economic development and preservation. This is about a balance. The state of New Jersey, through the State Plan Act, requires a plan that delivers a balance between economic development objectives and preservation objectives. This plan does best. We also think that the state of New Jersey has an amazing set of strengths and assets that oftentimes we underlook. Our people, our talented and well-educated workforce, is a magnet for companies. So it's one of the things that we hear in the Business Acumen Center, why companies want to be here. We need to make sure that we're educating our residents to make sure we have connections with those jobs in the future. We need to make sure that we have a geography in the state that remains attractive for the people to live, to raise our families. We need to make sure that we have coastal protection. We need to make sure that we have land preservation and parks. All these things are very important to us, not just from a quality of life perspective, but from a business attraction perspective also. We have a base of prosperous industry clusters in this state that other states surely envy. These are industry clusters that deliver wages for our residents, allow us to pay our bills, and lead productive lives, raise our families, and get our kids through college and buy groceries. So we have a set of industries in here that, from an organic growth perspective, we know that retaining those industries and having those industries grow is one of our core strategies, along with attracting firms to come in from other parts of the country to make sure that they can benefit in the upside of New Jersey. And we think that our observation is that in order to make this happen, we need strong and committed leadership. We think we have that with this administration. We think if this administration sets the right tone for a project like this, a plan like this, it will set the tone for other governors, other executives in the future to run the state of New Jersey with a common set of values, working better with local government. We do have some weaknesses and threats for our prosperity in the state, and the plan highlights a couple of them. And I'm not going to go negative tonight because I think tonight's about you, giving you an opportunity to give some constructive comments to us about what we think this plan does, or should or shouldn't do, and what's kind of waving and making improvements as it gets to the final leg here. But we have a situation in the state where we have obviously have some issues with economic downturn, which other states in our region are experiencing. We're seeing an uptick in that. We're thankful and hopeful for the future. But in the end, the monetary and statutory constraints we have in the state to manage land at a state level are highly, highly limited. So the plans of the past that got very, very involved with trying to create a statewide land use system, when the legislature didn't authorize that, really need to be rethought. Many of our urban centers in this state, even though the State Planning Act of 1985 and any other state plan or policy before that recognize that a healthy New Jersey is a state full of healthy cities, healthy urban centers. So we have to recognize that many of our urban centers in the state are not performing up to the potential, and we should think of ways and strategies to see that that can turn the corner.